All right, so 17 years of dating advice in I don't know how many minutes. We'll see what I titled this at the end of this video. I don't know how long this is gonna take because originally I set out to do 17 tips in 17 minutes and kind of keep that whole theme going. But once I started writing down different notes and thoughts, I came up with like damn near 70 things. So there's a lot to talk about with this topic. So for the sake of time, I'm not gonna go over all of them because we'd be here all day, but I will go over some. And as a quick note, these thoughts and notes aren't in any specific order. It was more of just kind of a stream of consciousness, but it's essentially a culmination of just thoughts, observations, and experiences across years of dating, whether that be the years that I spent in long-term relationships or the years that I spent being intentionally single or coaching men and even coaching women, as well as the hundreds, if not thousands of conversations that I've had with men and women over time. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. And just as a heads up, as I get into this, some of the things I'm going to talk about here are just like the raw, cold truth of things. So if you're looking for a channel that just tells you, just be yourself and the right girl will come along eventually, like this is not a good channel for that. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Number one is that all of this goes back to biology. This is important to keep in mind. No matter how much changes in society or what is trending on social media, women's attraction still responds to biological wiring. On a basic binary level, women seek survival value and men seek reproductive value. Women are generally risk adverse, non-confrontational, and they seek strength, security, resources, and stability. And by the way, when I say non-confrontational, I'm not saying that a woman won't start an argument with you or something, because they definitely will if you've been in a relationship or, have any extensive experience with women. But what I am saying though is that they generally will seek the non-confrontational outlet to whatever they're trying to achieve. So if they think a guy is weird, they'll ghost him rather than tell him straight up like, hey, I don't want to talk to you. Or, if a guy approaches her and she doesn't feel comfortable with that guy and he asks for her number, girls a lot of the time will just give the number so you go away instead of just saying like, oh, I actually don't like you, like, please leave me alone. They're typically going to take the non-confrontational route most of the time, which can be really irritating to men because guys usually expect or want a more straight up answer and clarity on things, reasonably so. Well, women are typically more covert than that, than, overt. Now, men are generally risk takers, more likely to be confrontational, and we seek youthfulness, beauty, and fertility. Generally, as men, we prioritize looks over everything else. So if somebody says, hey, I got this girl that wants to talk to you, she's a doctor or a lawyer, it's not really the impressive factor. It's more like, well, is she cute or what? If she's not cute, not into it, whereas a woman may make an exception depending on the guy's status and all that. So anyway, observe what women respond to across a substantial sample size. Men lie, women lie, results don't. Tradition prevails. And what I mean by this is that on like the most basic primal level, you can trace everything back to these biological factors. This is important to remember because a lot of times guys will be confused and they'll be like, why did she do that? Or why did she go for that guy? Or why is she attracted to that? Or why did she respond this way? Because it goes back to her biological wiring. She's seeking strength, security, resources, and stability. So if you keep that in mind, you can reverse engineer things and trace things back to this, and it'll make a lot more sense to you when you start to kind of dissect and break things down that way. It will also enlighten you on what is attractive in the first place and how to be more attractive. So always keep the biological element in mind because we are essentially slaves to our biology. We're born into a human body with a brain and our wiring, and we can't change it. It's hardwired into us. Now, of course, attraction is more nuanced than that. Women may look for a guy that's into certain things. He has certain values. He's from a certain culture. There's all these different things that come into play. But just on a basic primal level, keep biology and our wiring in mind. Now the next one, and this is like the core of my philosophy, and this is really important for dating and life in general. You need to destroy your delusions. And I'm not trying to get all matrix on you and all that stuff, but you need to see reality for what it is, not what you wish it to be. Like if you remember nothing else, remember that one line from all of this. Humans are susceptible to delusions and applying their visions of how things should be rather than accepting how things are. Just because you don't like how gravity works doesn't mean you can jump off a building and survive just because you think you should be able to. And just because you don't like how male and female dynamics work doesn't mean you will get results by doing things the way you think they should be done. If something is broken, fix it, find a way, and improve. Now, what I mean by this is I see comments sometimes where guys are like, well, why can't I just be myself? Like, why do I have to go through all this stuff? And here's the basic answer. If being yourself, quote unquote, because it's such like a nebulous term, if being yourself is getting results, then continue to do that. But if being yourself is not getting results, then we need to change something. It's very simple. And that usually means growth. Just because you are a certain way doesn't mean you're entitled to any type of results. It doesn't mean that you're entitled to women's attraction or to be friends with guys or anything else. There may be something about your current state that isn't very attractive. Maybe being yourself means that you're just really negative all the time and no one wants to be around that. Or maybe being yourself means that you're 100 pounds overweight and you need to lose the weight in order to become more attractive. The point is that you have to deal with reality. You have to objectively observe yourself for your strengths and weaknesses and figure out, what do I need to change? Why am I not getting results? Now, again, if you are getting results, keep doing what you're doing. It's a non-factor, right? But if you're not where you want to be, we got to change something. Simple. And despite being simple, I still see comments like this or have conversations with guys to where they don't want to face the simple truth. And this also applies across the board to women, which I'll get more into, but you also need to see the woman for who she is too, not who you wish her to be. That's really important as well. But anyway, bottom line here, if something's broken, fix it. If you're not getting results, fix it. Find a way. And if you can't find a way, get feedback from somebody, whether that's me, a friend, a family member, some other coach, whatever. Just figure out a game plan and get feedback that is honest and real so you can know where you're at. But don't ignore the elephant in the room and just think, well, I'm just going to ignore all this stuff. It doesn't really take all that. I'm just going to keep doing this and eventually it'll work, because that's not guaranteed. It could work, but so far you're getting no results. So it's probably not going to work, or it's not going to work to the effect that you want it to. It'll probably be a lot harder and you probably won't get the result that you're actually genuinely looking for. You may get like a lackluster version of it. Now, the next one is that the internet exaggerates everything. Not all women require a man who earns $500,000 a year. Not all women require a man to be 6'4". Not all women require a man to look like Brad Pitt. Not all women will cheat because a guy in a Ferrari smiled at her. And not all women are swooned because a guy is a CEO or has 1 million followers on social media. Contrary to popular belief, there are quality women out here that will make your life better, just like there's quality men. Now, these women won't be perfect because they're human, just like you and I. We're not perfect either. But don't let the internet pollute your mind with this stuff. Now, even when you watch some of the videos I've done, like the reaction videos, keep in mind that these are highlights of some of the most like toxic cases of women or some of the most annoying women, but it doesn't make up all of them. And I can honestly say this, the last 5 women that I've been on dates this year, I've actually like, it's funny because I had this YouTube channel. I'll ask questions to like pick women's brain. I asked all of them just for the sake of research on this topic. What are you looking for in a guy? Like, how much money does he have to make? Does he have to make like, $150K a year? I kind of throw like a high number out there to see how they'll respond to it. And honestly, that might be too low of a number for some of these women that you see in these clips saying the guy has to earn like 3, 4, and 500,000. But every single girl I propose that question to, they look at me weird, like kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, no. They all say the same thing. As long as the guy's just self-sufficient and can pay his bills and he's got some ambition, it's good enough. And that's always been in my experience as well too. Like I always come across women like that. I never come across women that are like, this guy has to make 400K a year. And even the height thing is really overblown too. I never come across women that are like, this guy's got to be 6'5". This guy's got to be 6'4". Usually they just prefer a guy that's taller than them, whatever that may be. And if you're talking to a girl that's 5'1", you know what I mean? Like you're most likely taller than her, even if you're 5'4", 5'5", 5'6". So keep these things in mind, because I know there's going to be objections. I know there's going to be some guys that are like, no, like these girls have, every girl wants a guy that's over 6 foot, blah, blah, blah. All I can say is just go out in the real world and see for yourself, because you will find that the internet largely exaggerates a lot of things. And one of the big advantages that we have as guys is how hooked women become on your personality. Like that is the thing that really hooks them, that you can leverage your personality, your conversational skill, your charisma, all these different things with women. So even if you don't have like these certain, really strong physical attributes in one way or another, if you're not, some GQ model or some really tall guy with a bunch of money or whatever, there's still other things you can leverage that actually mean more in the end anyway, which I'll get more into here in a second. Now, the advantage of the quality man. Some women are materialistic due to their upbringing, their past, their trauma, etc. They may have materialistic parents, a materialistic mother, whatever it is. They're just really focused on material things. But some other women prioritize superficial traits because they haven't experienced a quality man. They don't know what a quality man is in the first place and how a quality man can make her feel, which would be her number one priority if she felt those things. So instead, she just looks for what she can get: vacations, gifts, status and association, like whatever it may be. And these types of women have a laundry list of requirements because they deal with boring, weird, and dry men. A quality man is well-rounded and can hook her just off his conversation and presence alone. Now, I'm not saying that the rest doesn't matter. I'm not saying that you know, this guy can just have good conversation and be unemployed, 100 pounds overweight and have nothing going for him. You got to have something going for you. You got to be somewhat presentable. You know what I mean? So don't get carried away with this. But in general, a quality man is a well-rounded man who can hook her just off his conversation and presence alone. He doesn't got to be an Instagram fitness model. He doesn't got to be some super rich guy. He's just got to be self-sufficient, take care of himself, and have some things going for him. And on top of that, he's got a good personality. He's got good conversational skills. He's got good presence to him. Because remember, it's easier to find a cute girl that is cool to hang out with than it is to find a well-rounded masculine man. Women attract more attention, but they actually have fewer true options. And this is something I really want to emphasize. Women attract more attention. They get a lot of DMs, they get a lot of matches on dating apps, they get, you know, attention in the comments on their Instagram, whatever it is, they get attention. But the thing is they want almost none of those guys. And it doesn't even have to be because they're super picky. A lot of guys just present themselves in a really unattractive way. It's not even about their looks or anything. It's about the way they talk. It's about the way they act. It's about how thirsty they are. It's about the weird comments they make. It's about how they over-escalate things too soon, or maybe they don't escalate at all and they just kind of come off as a friend. It's just difficult to find a well-rounded, normal, masculine guy. So purely in terms of options and selecting someone, women attract a lot of attention, but they really don't want most of those guys anyway. So you have to look for ways to separate yourself from the crowd, which really isn't that hard to do, which I've spoken on before in other videos, because the bar is just really low. And I'm going to talk more about that here in a second. So don't be discouraged by this. It should actually be encouraging, because you can bypass a lot of the people that are just stuck at a standstill, essentially trying to attract these women, and they have no idea what they're doing. The next one is respect. Women only respect strength. Women only love men that they respect. Pay attention to how a woman speaks about a man in front of other people, how she treats him, and how proud she is to show him off. That's a really important thing, because women really do like to show you off when she's proud of you and when she respects you. She will actively look for opportunities to show you off in social situations. She wants you to come to a party or the barbecue or someone's birthday or whatever, because she wants other people to see you with her. She's proud to have you. She wants to show you off and show what she's got to her friends and her family. So a lack of respect signals where she views the man's level of strength. A woman who doesn't respect her man's strength is open for the taking. This is similar to the biology thing. Like, all things come back to strength. Women only respect strength. If you think about the things that women respect and are attracted to, they always have a foundation of strength to them. And if you think about the things that they're unattracted to, they always have a foundation of lacking strength. So if a man is brave enough to approach her, that signals strength. If he's got a muscular, strong physique, that signals physical strength. If he's able to generate a good amount of money and provide for people around him, that signals strength. So if a guy is lazy and complains a lot, that can signal a lack of strength, obviously. And you get the point overall here. So a woman's respect always comes back to the level of strength she perceives you as having. And this isn't even about physical attributes. A big one is emotional control. If you're emotionally just off the handle all the time and less in control than she is, you could be a guy that's got a Ferrari, a bunch of money, good looking, great physique, all this stuff. She doesn't respect you though. And almost no one respects a guy who has a lack of emotional control, male or female. So keep the bigger picture in mind there. But just remember that women only respect strength and women only love men that they respect. Now, women in relationships. Sometimes I get this question, like, should I talk to the girl with a boyfriend? Should I talk to this girl, who's married? She seems to be flirting with me. She seems to throw signals my way. She sends me DMs and stuff. And having been on the receiving end of that as well, I'm here to tell you that there are men out here that have no problem going to prison over a woman. An angry boyfriend or an angry husband, you have no idea what that man will and won't do. So it's best to just not put yourself in that situation to start with. Remember that emotional men are dangerous. Not everyone operates with the same logic that you and I have. People will do crazy things when they are hurt and upset. And remember too that you also lose her how you got her. If you get in a longer term scenario with a girl that was once married or in a relationship with a boyfriend and you stole her away, there's a good chance you'll lose her the same way. So in my opinion, no woman is worth that drama and risk. I know some guys out there mess with taking women, but it's not a game for me, man. I'll pass on that. All right, now let's talk about priority. Women prefer to be wanted, not needed. They like to be desired, not required. And no, I didn't know that would rhyme when I said it out loud. Sounds kind of good though. If she's required for you to function, it signals weakness. Appreciate her, but don't depend on her for your well-being. You should always have an internal confidence that if this girl left, you'd make it. This doesn't mean that you can't genuinely care for a woman. It means that you love yourself while being aware of your true value and resilience. Now, this point actually came to mind because of a conversation I had with a girl that I was on a date with about 2 months ago. And she flat out said that she was looking for a guy that would make her a priority in his life, but not the top priority. She said that she wanted to be part of a guy's life, but not the only focus of his life. Now, that woman said it straight up, and she's right. Because if you have any experience with women, you will notice that if you make them your top priority over everything else, that's typically when things start to go downhill pretty fast. Women really get off on being desired. It turns them on to be desired. They enjoy the idea of being desired by the man that they're attracted to and the man that they want. But overall, they prefer to be wanted and not needed. If you need her to function and she senses that, I got some bad news, bro. Like, that attraction level is most likely going to start going downhill. And I only say most likely just to give room for, outlier scenarios, but it's a very high chance. Let's just put it that way. Because as that woman said, she wants to be a priority in the guy's life. She doesn't want to be the top priority. And I've heard other women say this as well. And I've noticed it in my own experience. And I've noticed it with other men as well in their relationships and the feedback they've given me. They want to be cared for by you and come along for the journey, but they don't want to be the journey itself. So keep this in mind, because a lot of guys will drift towards making the girl that number one priority in his life, and then they get confused when things start to go downhill. You have to operate with this internal confidence that if she left, you'd make it. Like, you would like to have her around, but if she chooses to go, like, you're still all right. You're still a man on your own. You still have a life ahead of you. You still have a lot of value. You still respect yourself enough to not fall apart just because a girl left. Now, another one that's really important is that you aren't aware of your own power. Most men don't understand their true capacity. Most are bad at gauging their own potential, which is where mentors can be helpful. Sometimes mentors and coaches or people you respect in your life can see more potential in you than you see in yourself. The only way to discover your capacity is to constantly operate on the edge of comfort and consistently seek to expand it. This is the most satisfying pursuit as a man and where true confidence is found. The most satisfying pursuit in life is not sleeping with a 10 out of 10 girl. It's overcoming the things that scare you and challenge your comfort level. It's overcoming the things that are uncomfortable to you, the things that you don't want to do, the things you weren't sure if you actually could do. It's getting to a point where you look back on your life and you're like, man, I can't believe I actually did all that stuff. I can't believe I actually accomplished all that. I can't believe I actually transformed my body and got in that good a shape when I started off with a physique that looked nothing like that. I can't believe I went from broke to being wealthy against all the odds. I can't believe I went from having social anxiety and being scared to cold approaching 100 girls in a week. Whatever your goal is, whatever the obstacle is, the most satisfying pursuit in life is overcoming those things. And most guys watching this have so much more potential and capacity, but you have to live on the edge of comfort and consistently seek to expand it in order to fulfill that potential and discover where your true capacity lies. Now, as a byproduct, when you do this, you will attract higher quality women as you reach new milestones of transformation. I can say that looking at myself 10 years ago versus now, I'm a totally different person. There's still that core element of, who I am as a person, but a lot has changed and a lot has evolved as I've had to be put in situations that were scary or very uncomfortable, or doing things I didn't want to do, or doing things I didn't think I could do. When you do push those boundaries and get past those things, that is the most satisfying pursuit as a man. It starts to build true confidence because you see what you're actually capable of. And as a byproduct, that makes you just more of a magnetic, attractive person in general. Not just to women either, but to guys. You'll draw in better friends and a better network and everything else. So this is something to really, really hone in on, because most people will not do this. And another, core element of my philosophy is do the things that other people won't. Do the things that people are afraid to do. Do the things that people find too uncomfortable to do. So really keep this in mind, because this is critical, not just for dating, but for life in general. And the two just overlap so much, because as you progress as a man, that typically makes you more attractive as a man as well. It builds your confidence and all the attributes that go along with that. So let's move on to misconceptions. Most of you that think you have a problem in one area actually have a larger problem in another. For instance, I can't tell you how many coaching calls I've done where someone comes to me and they say something like, I'm good everywhere else. I just need some advice in this one little area. And it's almost always wrong once you start to ask questions and expand on the problem. You usually find that it's just a symptom of a larger problem. The guy that thinks he just needs help with this one girl usually has bad communication across the board with all girls. The guy that says he's usually fine with women, but he just fumbled this one girl for some reason. He usually acts weak with every girl. You're not aware of what you're not aware of. And what I mean by that is that if someone doesn't evaluate your situation and go, okay, hold on, objectively looking at the bigger picture here, you're saying that you're having a problem here, but this actually connects to this other area. And you seem to have a history of problems in this larger area. Everything connects together. So usually when you're looking at one isolated incident of something, it's usually a symptom of a larger problem overall. It's usually not about just tweaking that one little thing and you're fine. It's usually about looking at the bigger problem and going, okay, you tend to just always communicate in a weak way with women in general. It's not just that you fumbled this one girl. But the problem is that you won't be aware of this unless someone points it out to you. So again, get feedback from someone. Doesn't matter if it's me, someone else, family member, friend. Sometimes you need someone to objectively look at your situation and say, bro, you're focused on the wrong thing. You're not focused on the highest leverage thing that's going to get you the most results. You isolated this one little thing that's actually pretty insignificant in the bigger picture. You need to fix the bigger problem, and that will take care of the little thing or the thing that you view as being little. Now, it doesn't take much. The bar is low, as I was saying before. Most guys just suck with women. They're emotional, they say dumb things, they lack self-awareness, etc. Just being somewhat aware of what's going on and what to do makes you exceptional, because the bar is just that low. And one of the reasons that it is so low is that dating is a prideful area of life for many. It's a weird thing that I've noticed, and I don't know why it is this way. It reminds me actually of fighting. So for instance, when you have, guys in a bar that are pissed off at each other, getting ready to square up and start a bar fight, or in the club or something like that, for some reason, every guy thinks he can fight. And the truth is that almost none of them actually can, because most people don't train martial arts or in a fight sport. So they don't actually have the skill to fight. But I guess because it's a primal instinct, guys just are, confident enough to want to square up and fight another guy, even though they would get mopped all over the floor with someone that can even just throw a punch. You don't have to be a pro fighter to beat up some average guy. 6 months of training, you could do that. And dating is a similar thing. For some reason, a lot of guys just think that they know exactly what to do with women. They're fine. They don't need help in this area. A lot of guys will be embarrassed too to ask for help. That's another thing that I've encountered with coaching calls and stuff too. Guys will act embarrassed. They'll say things like, they have like kind of this ashamed aura to them, to where they're like, I just need help with this one thing, and I know it's kind of silly and blah blah. No, man, it's a totally different skill set. Like it's a skill just like anything else. Most people aren't born with the natural ability to navigate this stuff. So again, dating is a prideful area of life for many. They automatically assume they know what they're doing, and when you assume you know what you're doing, you're not going to look for help. You're not going to look for ways to get better. So these guys spin their wheels indefinitely, or they just give up. It doesn't take a lot to stand out. It really doesn't. And that doesn't mean to aim low. It's just to keep in mind that if you do a few of the core things right consistently over time, that will make you exceptional alone. You'll stand out from a huge crowd of people that don't know what they're doing. All right, so perspective. Many men will try to lure women in with materialistic things. Cars, money, designer clothes, vacations, gifts, etc. They're hoping to lure women with things so that she likes him. But men who are good with women realize they are the lure. If you cannot lure a woman with who you are, you do not want that woman. This is a deep mindset shift that expands far beyond dating. The reason I say that this is a deep mindset shift that expands far beyond dating is because this is just a different way of looking at life. This is a way of looking at life to where you are enough. You are valuable. You possess life-changing ability to bring to other people. That's a lot different than the person who looks at life as, well, what do I got to give to get their acceptance? Like, how do I have to be to get their acceptance? Like, what can I buy this girl so that she likes me? How can I impress her? How can I impress my friends? How can I impress this in this job interview? How can I just like blow them away? It's this thing where you get caught in this mindset of people pleasing or trying to be accepted by other people. It operates from a needy or an insecure standpoint, versus understanding the value that you bring and having strength and confidence in that, and who you are as a man and what you offer and how you can bring life-changing ability and circumstance to somebody else's life. And a woman that doesn't recognize your intrinsic value is not a woman that you want to be with. Again, this is a deep mindset shift that goes far beyond dating. This is like a life perspective shift. So this is something to really think about. Now, community. It is very difficult to find men who are good with women and can be a good influence. Men who are bad with women can be extremely toxic in some cases. Avoid these men. This may not seem like a big deal to certain people, but I can tell you that if you're around guys that do poorly with women, they're not liked by women, they get rejected a lot, they give off a weird vibe, they have, anger towards women, These guys can be really toxic if you're trying to progress and do better, or you already are doing better. The reason why you want to avoid these guys is that they can give you flat out bad advice a lot of the time because they don't have the experience to give you good advice. They don't have enough success to actually give you good advice. They can be giving advice from a standpoint, or even if it's not advice, maybe it's just input, maybe it's a comment on your situation. They can be making these comments from a standpoint of frustration, jealousy, wanting to live vicariously through you, or just being a negative influence in general. Being bad with women is one thing. Like if you're bad with women and you want to improve, I would say that's a positive thing overall. You just have to understand where that guy is on his journey. Like if you're ahead of him, if you typically do better than him, I wouldn't take advice from him, but he could learn things from you. But the guys you really want to avoid are the guys that are bad with women that have no intention of changing anything, or they say they want to change things, but they never stick to the plan. Avoid these guys. Now, joining a community is highly underrated and one of the biggest factors for success. The accountability, encouragement, camaraderie, and motivation can't be understated. You hear this a lot, like your net worth is your network and all this stuff. It's very cliche. It's hard to understand it until you experience it though. When you really experience it, you're like, oh, I see why it's cliche. It's real. Like a strong network of men, it's like one of the biggest life-changing things there are. It can make all the difference. And if you don't have that outlet in real life, join one online. It's a game changer. I've even thought about starting one. We'll see. If you're watching this in the future, maybe check the description. Maybe there'll be a community down there. But this cannot be emphasized enough. You want to network with other men, specifically men that are trying to improve or are already where you want to be. The benefits of this are immeasurable. It makes so much of a difference to be around that good energy, that good influence, be able to bounce ideas off other men that are on the same journey that you're on. It is just invaluable. I cannot stress it enough. It's been a huge game changer for me in different areas of my life, and I highly recommend it. And get away from those people that are toxic and bring nothing to your life but negativity. They try to bring you down, or they just provide bad advice that could be sabotaging you. Now let's talk about momentum. Dating, like many areas of life, is all about momentum. Breaking inertia is always the hardest part of anything. If you can create motion, you can turn that motion into momentum that continues to snowball. When things are stagnant, it can feel like an impossible boulder to move. But when things are flowing, it will almost seem too easy. You can't help but win. So with a lot of things in life, whether it's like making money or dating in this case, you'll notice that when you're starting to win, the wins start to pile up more and more. The hardest part is getting from a point where you're at a standstill. Like let's say you can't get a date. You haven't been on a date in 6 months. The hardest part is getting that first date. But if you can get that first date, you can usually find a second. If you can get 2, you probably get 4. And it starts to increase exponentially from there because you start to get a certain momentum to your life and you start to move different. You start to act different, like little things that you do, like little micro expressions and the way you carry yourself, the way you communicate, everything's different. So it's important to get some momentum. One area I see a lot is guys will get too picky. And I'm going to talk about like looks and stuff here in a second. But the thing to keep in mind when I do talk about that in a second is to not be too picky. Like if you're not getting any results at all and you're waiting around to go out with a 10, go out with a 6 or a 7. Like you don't have to marry this girl. Just get some momentum, like get in the flow of things. I'm not saying to go out with chicks that you're unattracted to, but you need some momentum on your side because it will help. It will get you in more of a flow state to where you can start to get more and more success rather than just being at a standstill waiting for the perfect moment. Like that doesn't really work in any area of life at all, and dating is the same thing. So you'll notice that when you start to get results and things start to flow and things are going well, you just really can't help but win. Like you'll just keep winning more and more and more. But if you come to a standstill, man, it can feel like moving mountains trying to get moving again. So try to find ways to get momentum back on your side and then keep it rolling. Now, carryover. All of these elements that make your dating results better carry over to other areas of life. The actions that go into creating a strong dating life and understanding of dating dynamics creates a strong man overall. The way you do one thing is the way that you do most things. If you're not confident with girls, you're probably not confident with other areas of your life. If you're afraid to escalate with a girl, you probably hesitate with being assertive in life in general. The true pursuit of being better with women actually transforms your life. So the pursuit of being better in life and being with women, they ping pong off each other a lot. If you start to become better with escalating with women or approaching women, it's going to exercise your assertiveness overall because again, the way you do one thing is the way you do most things. So if you're afraid to escalate with a girl or you're afraid to approach her, you probably hesitate with being assertive in general in life. The type of person who is very assertive in life is usually assertive across the board. A very assertive guy is not going to be scared of talking to a girl at the coffee shop. I've known some very assertive guys. That is probably the least of their worries or their fears. The way they operate in life is typically how they operate with women and vice versa. And if you're not confident with girls, you're probably not confident with other areas of your life either. Because if you were a confident guy overall, that carries over to other areas of your life, including women. So again, these things connect to each other. And usually when you're aiming to improve with women, it's going to improve your life overall. Sometimes you'll see guys say things like, oh, you're doing all this just to get girls or impress girls. Like, that's lame or whatever. Like, yes, that can be true if it's very superficial things. If you're buying fancy dinners and gifts to try to impress women, that is lame. But if you're trying to transform your life, if you're working on your approaching of women, or you're working on, escalating with girls on dates, or your communication skills with women, that's not lame, because you're going to be becoming better as a human being, because you're getting out of your comfort zone. You're overcoming these things that scare you or make you nervous or make you hesitate. And that's going to carry over to other areas of your life. Now, cold approach. Cold approach is a good skill to have, but it's inefficient in terms of time and volume. You'll find higher ROI expanding your social circle strategically. There's a very specific way to do that. And leveraging online game, meaning dating apps, Instagram, things like that. Work smarter, not harder. Don't use this as an excuse to never approach. Run volume and develop the skill to have it in your arsenal for when you need it. Now, this is a topic that'll most likely ruffle some feathers, because there's certain guys. I know a guy that relies 100% on cold approach. He says he does so well with cold approach that he doesn't need to do online dating and all this stuff, right? But there is some nuance to this, and location is a big detail. If you're in a random suburb in the middle of Nebraska, going out and cold approaching, it's probably going to be tough. It's going to be tough to find women that you even find attractive. It's going to be tough to generate enough volume to where you're consistently getting better. A determined person could still, make some progress. But the guy who's in the middle of Manhattan and New York City, he has a much larger pool to deal with in a local area where he can just hammer volume all the time, and he's probably not going to see the same woman twice. So it's going to be fresh approaches all the time, every day, and he can get better a lot faster, and he's also going to generate a lot more results. Now, I'm not saying that cold approach is useless. I think you just have to evaluate your situation and find out what is most efficient for me with my circumstances and with my time and the volume I want to run. If you're in an area that isn't very conducive to running high volume with cold approach, if you're not in the middle of downtown Miami, New York City, Las Vegas, one of these big cities like that, or a major metro area to where you can go out and do this a lot, you're going to run into some inefficiencies. You should still do it, because it's a skill that you should have. It allows you to develop as a person, as a man, and get better. And it's a skill that everyone should have, because let's say you're at a bar or a club or something and you do see a girl, or it could be anywhere if you don't go to bars or clubs, parties, out on the street, grocery store, whatever it is. You want to have the ability to walk up to that girl if you're interested in her, start a conversation, and get things moving. It's not good to never approach and not have that skill, because you will come across women at some point in person where you want to say something, but then you don't know how. So practice the skill. But you will get to a point where you have to evaluate efficiency. Is this the best use of my time? Does this get me the most amount of results for the effort that I'm putting in? Am I able to run high volume for my goal, whatever that may be? Is you're just trying to get more dates? Are you trying to, live a player life? Are you trying to have a relationship? Whatever it is. What is the ROI on my time investment? What is the efficiency here? Now, for me, I live in an area that's just not crawling with dimes, walking up and down the street at noon on a Tuesday, So for me, it became a game of efficiency, and I found what was most efficient for me was social circle and leveraging things like online dating apps, Instagram, so on and so forth. Overall, you need to figure out what is the highest ROI approach for you and work smarter, not harder. But I will say in general, you can run a lot higher volume online, and you can also reach women that you normally wouldn't run into every day. If you're not leveraging those avenues, you're not truly maximizing the results that you could get. Now, one thing I want to note here, because I know someone's going to say this. Someone's going to come in and say, well, yeah, if your game is bad at cold approach, then your ROI is going to be really bad. You actually have to get good at it, and then it becomes, far more valuable. I agree with that. Obviously, if you're good at it, it's going to be more valuable. However, for the sake of this conversation, let's assume that the person cold approaching is pretty proficient in it. He's able to talk to girls, he's able to get numbers, he's able to get some dates, and now he's at a point where he has to determine what is the highest ROI for his lifestyle or even his age. The younger you are, the more time you're going to have to be able to devote to getting really good at that. versus a guy who's just starting this at 40 years old and he's a business owner with a bunch of responsibilities. Not to say that that guy can't go out and do that. I'm not going to make excuses. I think it's important to understand that if you want to get good at something, you can make time for it. It doesn't matter what your situation is. You can figure out a way. Where there is a will, there is a way. So I'm not going to make excuses for that. But there is a lifestyle difference between a 40-year-old and a 19-year-old. So that's something to consider as well. Again, you're going to have to figure this out for your situation and what applies to you. Now, you must be cold to be a player. And for the sake of just having a definition here, because you might define a player differently than me, I'm just defining it as someone who dates multiple women at a time with no intention to commit. And to be a player, you need to be capable of having ice in your veins. Most guys can't do it, and not every guy should anyway. The timer is always ticking on the women that you see. And that's one of the reasons why I say that you need to have ice in your veins. Because if you choose that lifestyle, you will come to a point where you have to get rid of some of the women that you actually like for the sake of continuing that variety and staying single, because most women will want a relationship at some point. They'll want to lock you down. They want to have kids, get married, etc. So you'll come to a point naturally where these women will just start to fall off naturally, or you'll have to have the talk with them or let them go or whatever it is. And some of those girls you'll really like. And it's almost like you're almost like intentionally hurting yourself a little bit to continue your lifestyle. A lot of guys can't do that. Most guys date until they find a girl that they like, and then they get in a relationship, so on and so forth. That's, it's fine. That's like the normal path, right? But if you want to live more of a player lifestyle, that's not necessarily a normal path. So you're gonna have to do some abnormal things in order to continue doing it. And it actually, takes discipline, resiliency, and being calculated and patient. Because you may go through dry spells. You may go through a point where you have to get rid of a girl that you actually really like, but you want to continue living this way, and you know that she wants something else, so you got to let her go. And you got to be disciplined with your emotions. You got to stick to the plan if that's what you want to do. And you got to be resilient to where if you got a rotation of girls or whatever you got going on, or if you're dating this girl and that girl and they fall off and all of a sudden you got no girls again, you got to be able to pick it back up and again, break inertia. You got to start from zero and make it happen again. Although if you're really like living the player lifestyle, then you're always going to have leads coming in. But to truly be a player for an extended period of time, you have to deny yourself comfort for the sake of variety and independence. And again, that goes back to, having a girlfriend or a steady girl around, or these girls that you like, you're gonna have to cut them off at some point, because the timer is always ticking. They're not going to stick around indefinitely unless you commit to one. And most guys can't do that, and I don't think most should anyway. I don't think most guys are built for that, and it's not necessarily like a good or a bad thing to do that. It's just addressing this type of lifestyle choice is ultimately what I'm doing here. So not endorsing it, not saying it's bad, just saying what it is. The other thing about a player life is that it can become an addiction, because women in power are the most potent drugs on earth. A truly successful player lifestyle combines both. Once you open Pandora's box, it's difficult to go back. You may burn out temporarily, but when complacency kicks in, old habits may become tempting again. You will also be tempted at some point to see if you still got it. The only thing that can end this is true burnout. And that's when you get to a point where you go, you know what, I'm truly done with dating. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want a relationship. I don't want to be, having to get new leads all the time and managing a rotation, and this girl's mad and upset now, and I got to get rid of this girl, and now I got to get more girl. Like, there is an element of maintenance to all that. And if you reach a true burnout where you are like truly to the core of you absolutely sick of it, in my opinion, that's the only way to actually end the cycle, because you become what you practice. And if you practice being a player all the time, especially for years and years, you're really ingraining those habits into you. So when you do get into a relationship, old habits die hard. That temptation can start to pop up again, because your mind is used to having new women all the time, and one might seem a little bit boring after a while. And again, women in power are the most potent drugs on earth. The power element of being a successful player is that you're able to pull women pretty much anytime you want to. You got all this validation coming in from women. It feels good. It feels like a drug in a way. It is kind of like having a superpower in a way, because not every guy can do that. And especially if you came from a point where you struggled with women and then you got really good at it, that's a big high. That's a big dopamine hit to your brain. And then women are just, a drug to men in general. It's just how we're wired. Like, it feels good to be with an attractive woman. It feels good to have that feminine energy around, and to have like a variety of them pining for you. That's a lot of dopamine in the brain flying around, man. So again, in my opinion, only true burnout can really end that cycle. Now, quality over quantity. Getting with a 9 is better than 50 different 6s. A truly beautiful woman taps into a primal side of you that you cannot unlock otherwise. Everything fires differently. It motivates you to be on your A game. And this can also be used against you without the right mindset and experience. And I'll touch more on that in a second. But this is not an excuse to sit around waiting for 9s if you can't get a date. You need some momentum. You need to get moving. You have to crawl before you can walk. But once you can walk, your pickiness will naturally increase, or it usually will. Usually once you start to prove to yourself that you can pull more and more girls, you start to get better with women, you'll start to get naturally pickier. You won't be really motivated by, a 6 or a 7 anymore. You'll want to keep pushing yourself and challenging yourself. Like, I wonder if I could pull like an 8 or a 9, or, I want to pull more beautiful women, or whatever your goal is. Usually your pickiness will continue to rise though as you get better and better and as your experience goes on. It's like anything else in life. If you're a professional football player in the NFL and you've played 10 seasons, it was probably really cool to be a professional football player the first time you stepped on that field in the first season. But if you don't have a Super Bowl ring by season 10, you probably really want to win that championship. You always wanted to win the championship anyway. But now it's like, what else can I do in my career? I want to win that championship. I want to achieve that top thing. So again, it's like if you're single for a while, you started off not being good with women, you got a lot better, you started to pull more and more, you've proved to yourself that you can have success, you start to want better and better women over time. The thing is though, is that sometimes you'll see these guys that talk about like these really high body counts, like, oh, I slept with like 400 girls. But the reality of that is they're not telling you that the majority of those girls were like 4s, because just by definition, 9s are rare. They aren't walking around. They're way above average. They're not everywhere. So a guy with a 400 body count isn't sleeping with only 9s unless he's got, the caveat there is like extreme status. If it's Drake or something, like he could sleep with 500 9s if he wants to. But for your average guy walking around who says he slept with 200 girls or whatever, some guys have these numbers that they're lying about, but let's say they're true. If you're an average guy and you slept with 200 girls, a lot of them aren't attractive, bro. Like that's just the way it is. You're not bagging 200 9s as some average guy. But getting with 1 9 is far more satisfying than getting with 50 different 6s. There's an internal motivation when you're with a truly beautiful woman. It's hard to describe. It taps into that primal side. Let's go back to biology, where we optimize for beauty and fertility and all these things. And a really beautiful woman, if you think about her on a biological level, is a really strong trigger for a good woman to mate with and pass our genes along to, So when you're with a 9 or just a really beautiful woman, let's forget the number. Let's just say she's really beautiful to you. It taps into another side of you. If you're a guy with ED, all of a sudden you don't got ED anymore because this girl's just so hot. If you struggle to, kind of be on your A game with women, or you get lazy, all of a sudden you're at the top of your game with a really beautiful woman because you really want to pull this girl. You're really paying attention to every detail. Like your mind's on alert. It's just different. It activates a different part of you. Once you start getting some experience and you start to get better and better, I personally recommend quality over quantity. I don't see the upside of sleeping with 100 mediocre girls. Like no one even cares about that number anyway. Like no one's going to pat you on the back for that. So aiming for higher quality women as you get better and better is the better play, in my opinion. Now, with all that said, beauty is not the end all be all, and it shouldn't be the only thing that you look for, nor is it the thing that matters most. And in fact, something you may notice along the way is that some of the most beautiful women will actually be some of the most boring to be around. Or you may also notice that some of the prettiest women may actually be the biggest detriment to your life and just bring stress. So all of that is worth considering. But this is a concept that I wanted to mention because it's something that I've noticed with some men as they improve their results with women over time. Exploration. Dating is much easier if you genuinely enjoy the adventure element. If you find it interesting to meet new people and explore, you'll have a much better time with this. If it feels like pulling teeth, then you will struggle to put in the work required. You will also be more likely to give up. So find the fun in the process. I notice with people that I know that struggle with dating, or they don't like it, it's because they don't like the process in general. They don't find it fun. I actually find it fun. I find it almost adventurous in a way. Like anytime I go on a date with somebody new, it's like, all right, what am I going to find with this one? Like, what's her personality going to be like? How's this going to play out? Like there's always something new that happens, and that to me is really fun. I have a really good time with that. I've also had good times being in long-term relationships though too. It's not just about dating all the time. I've had fun doing both. The process is just fun. If you can find that silver lining and just find a way to enjoy the process, and you find it interesting to meet new people and going through the self-development process, that's another thing too, is like, I just enjoy the self-development process. I enjoy challenging myself and getting better and getting past the things that I used to fail at, or the things that scare me or make me nervous, things like that. It's all a development process. It's interesting meeting new people. Find the fun in the process. If you can do that, this will be a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable, even in the down times when you're in a dry spell or whatever else is going on. That better times are ahead. It's just a matter of time. Now, different skill sets. Paradoxically, attracting women and retaining them are different skill sets, yet they require many of the same skills. Just because a guy can pull girls and get laid doesn't mean that he can maintain anything further. Maintaining a relationship with a woman is about continuously pulling her over and over again. That's what I mean about they are different skill sets, but they use some of the same skills. Guys will make the mistake sometime of looking at dating material and they'll say, oh, well, this is really aimed at like short-term stuff. This isn't useful for long-term. There is an element of truth to that, but those skills can be used in the long term. If you know how to pick up and attract a woman, you basically apply that skill set over and over again in a long-term relationship. You're basically pulling her over and over again in order to maintain that relationship. You know, a more mainstream way of saying this is, you know, never stop dating your girl. Like, make sure that you always continue to date her. That's the same thing. Now, some men who appear confident on the surface end up overspending and overextending themselves to keep a girl around. You know, so just because a guy keeps a girl around doesn't mean he's good with women either. He might be spending a ton of money on her and trying to please her and bending over backwards to keep her around. You don't know the method that he's using to keep her around. It may be the wrong type of method completely. But remember that in general, retention is the harder skill to learn because it requires more endurance. To pull a girl over and over again, the same girl, to keep dating the same girl for a long period of time, that requires endurance. That requires your game to stay firmer longer. You know, it's when a short-term situation, if you pick a girl up at a bar or on a dating app or whatever, it's just she only sees you for that short glimpse of time. But when a girl sees you for 10 years, that's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to maintain women than it is to initially attract them. Now, advice on games. Specific game tips are neither good nor bad inherently. The advice is either useful to you or it's not. Everyone has their own style and the context is usually what's missing. You only discover what is useful through action and testing, not theory. Make sure to evaluate the idea, not the person. Keep what is useful. Now, sometimes you'll hear certain guys recommend like, say this line or open with this opener on dating apps. And sometimes it may resonate with you. It might work really well. Or you might look at it and be like that's corny or I don't like that. It's not necessarily that it's corny or that it doesn't work. It just fits that guy. What's missing is the context. His vibe is a certain way. His personality is a certain way. His level of physical attractiveness, the photos he used on a dating app is a certain way, or the way he met a girl in person and the way the circumstance came about. There's like all these little details in between. And it's impossible to know all of those details. So instead of just going, oh, that's stupid or that's dumb, take it for what it is. It's either useful information or it's not. For your game and your personality, the best thing you can do is just test things out and see how it works. And what I mean by evaluate the idea and not the person is I had a professor in college when I was taking philosophy. And one thing he used to say was evaluate people's ideas, not the person. And the example he gave was if Hitler came back today and he said that murder was wrong, would you disagree with him? Would the idea be wrong just because he was a murderer? Obviously, the answer is no. Murder is wrong. Just because it's Hitler saying it doesn't make it wrong. So if someone says, hey, say this line or try this thing with girls, and you sit there and you go, that guy's just like, he seems like kind of lame or he seems corny, doesn't necessarily mean the information's wrong. It's better just to test it out and see if that fits in your game or not, rather than judging it by the person. So be open-minded with this stuff and understand the context that goes into it. Now, the highest leverage skill that you can learn is conversational skill, and escalation is a very close second. Like they're like neck and neck. Like I really wanted to rank escalation first, but you need conversational skill to be able to escalate. Everything hinges on this: articulation, escalation, persuasion, assertiveness, relatability, connection, etc. Everything hinges on conversational skill. And the thing is that being physically attractive amplifies the effect of your conversational ability, but a lack of conversational ability downgrades your physical attractiveness. So if you look really good, but you have no conversational skill, it's kind of just a wash. Like you'll initially attract girls, maybe you'll even get laid here and there, but you're missing a massive part of the puzzle that makes all of this work and that keeps women around, and it maximizes your ability to attract even more of them. But if you have great conversational ability and then you add the physical attractiveness on top of it, man, that's just adding like fuel to the fire. That's just going to crank everything up 100 times, you know? So the highest leverage skill is conversational skill. You got to develop your conversational skill. And like I said, escalation is a very close second. Escalation is what drives everything forward. It's incredibly important. Again, they're neck and neck, but escalation does hinge on conversational skill to a large degree. All right, so leveraging your unfair advantages. The goal of testing and refinement is to identify and leverage your own unfair advantages. You have a unique blend of strengths that are different from the next guy. Quote unquote, being yourself is a combination of strategic growth and understanding your most powerful attributes. If being yourself isn't working, you need to change something, as I spoke about before. Reality doesn't care about what you want or how you think things should be. As men, we are entitled to nothing. So the overall point here is that the goal of testing out these different tips and tricks that you watch in videos, or, advice that you get from a friend or a book or whatever it is to identify and leverage your own unfair advantages. You want to find the things that work for you and play to your strengths, and then discard the rest. You're going to have a unique set of strengths that the next guy doesn't have. So naturally, your game is going to be different from one guy to the next. A strength of mine is that I'm really good at making girls feel comfortable with me really fast. So what that means is that if I can get the girl to be in person with me on a date, I'm highly confident on my ability to succeed on the date, and have her come back for a second, third, whatever the situation may be, or just to have a really good date for, that one night. So what that means is that the hard part for me used to be getting leads to even get a girl on a date, getting enough leads to have consistent dates. That was the more challenging part than the actual date itself. I felt like if I can get the girl to the date, the rest is smooth sailing from there. So I have to improve my lead generation essentially. And then I came up with methods of doing that, and then, brought up that weakness to where now I can get leads consistently, and I can bring them into the area that I'm strongest, which is the date itself and building comfort quickly. That's a strength of mine. Now your strength may be different. I know guys that are very extroverted. I'm more introverted by nature. I know guys that are really extroverted and their strength is generating leads because they just naturally, you bring them to a club or a bar and they just float around talking to everybody. Like they leave with 10 numbers by accident just because they're so social. That is their strength. But then they have problems maintaining a girl. They can't retain the attraction. They can get the girl, they can get her on the date. Maybe the date's good, but then things start to fizzle out and they're back to the drawing board again. So they would need to work on that part of their game, but they still want to double down on their unfair advantage. Their unfair advantage in that scenario would be really good at being social, really, really good at being extroverted and open with strangers. That's a big advantage. That's a different strength than what my strength is. So the key is to bring up your weaknesses, but still leverage your unfair advantages, because that's what separates you from the next guy. And as you improve in these areas and you get better and better and you grow, that's going to change who you are. So being yourself by default becomes a great strategy. But if being yourself isn't working, like I was saying earlier, then something's got to change. If you're being yourself and you're not getting results, you got to change something. I hate this term of being yourself, but I'll continue using it because most people use this term and can, relate to the terminology somewhat. But the ultimate goal is just to be able to flow and naturally be yourself and be successful. But if there's weaknesses that you have to bring up, then you need to address those. All right, so the next one, they mold to the man. Women mirror the guy that they're with. They will start to adapt pieces of the guy's communication style, his viewpoints, his jokes, his attitude, etc. This includes being shaped by the treatment that you give her. You will either create a monster or an angel depending on how you carry yourself and how you treat her. This process is always in progress. Many guys bend to the woman's will and create princesses that cause headaches and throw tantrums. This process begins with her father and then it trickles down. Vet accordingly. Okay, so let's start at the top here. Women mirror the guy that they're with. You'll notice this, that women tend to mold to the guy that they're with. It's just in their nature. They'll start to be into some of the things that the guy is into. He'll kind of dictate the pace of that. They'll start to be a fan of the sports team that he likes. They may even start to talk and communicate like him. I saw this recently with a girl that I know. I hadn't talked to her in a while. And she's been dating a guy, and immediately when she started talking to me, I could pick up on how her communication was different. She was talking more like the guy, and it was just another case of this. You'll see this all the time. It's actually a way too. You can tell if a girl is potentially cheating on you. If her communication's different and things are different, she's potentially being influenced by another guy, and she's picking up on those traits naturally. We all do this as humans to some degree, no matter who you hang around, but women will really mold to the man that they're with, and alter things about their lifestyle and their life and their opinions and everything to fit the man, assuming that they respect him and they're attracted to him. And women will do this with you too. So again, this includes being shaped by the treatment you give her. You're either creating a monster or an angel depending on how you carry yourself and you treat her. And this was advice I originally got growing up. I got it from my grandmother and my mom. And they both warned me early on with one of my first girlfriends. They're however you treat her is going to build her to be a certain way. And at the time I didn't understand it. I was too young. I was still a teenager. But as time went on, I started to see what they were talking about. And it is absolutely true. And you'll see this with men that bend over backwards for their women and allow these women to just walk all over them. They're creating that. They're allowing that. You know, you've probably heard the saying that, I forget the exact wording, but essentially you can only be as pushed as far as you allow. You know, you set the boundaries and you condition people to treat you a certain way. This is especially true with women, and especially the longer they're with you. You will be creating a monster or an angel depending on how you carry yourself and you treat her. Some guys just spoil the hell out of a girl to try to please her and to try to keep the peace. And that builds a spoiled monster. That builds an entitled monster. That it builds a woman with a lot of attitude. But then other guys won't tolerate that stuff. They lead with who they are, not what they can give the girl. They don't tolerate disrespect and BS. And it forms a more respectful interaction because that is their boundary. Now, that doesn't mean be a dictator. You can go listen to more of this in my video about long-term relationship game. It's not about being a dictator or about, you know, trying to intimidate the girl or whatever. No, it's not about that at all. It's about still being emotionally in control and being a good leader. But it is about enforcing boundaries. Now, this process is always in progress. Women are always molding to the guy they're with, and they're always being shaped by the treatment that the guy is giving her or whatever he's allowing her to get away with. And ultimately, this begins with her father and it trickles down. If the dad spoiled her and let her get away with murder, you're going to be dealing with a girl who carries on a lot of that behavior, because that is the foundational view that she has for men and the expectations she has for other men. So when I say vet accordingly, you want to pay attention to this girl's family background and where she came from. Now, type A versus type B women. This is an interesting one. So type A women are the women that are more bold, they're more brash, they're more social, they have a more aggressive and testing flirting style. If you watch some of my other videos and you hear some of the stories I tell of women that threw out a lot of tests or they tease me, things like that. This is that type of woman. It's a type A woman. Though a lot of their game is based on testing you off the bat. It's more of an aggressive flirting style. Now, type B women are more laid back, they're more passive, and they have a more neutral flirting style. Type A women, the thing about them is that they're usually really intelligent and they're quick on their feet. Because one of the things is that if a girl actually has like a witty teasing style or a witty flirting style to where you're almost laughing at it, it takes intelligence to do that. It takes intelligence to be witty. It takes intelligence to think fast on your feet. And a lot of these women are usually really intelligent in that way. The caveat here would just be a woman who's just annoying and disrespectful. That's not the type A. That's not the type of woman I'm talking about when I say type A. That's a lot of the word type. But type A women are attracted to men who won't break under their flirting style. And these men are hard to find because most guys won't be able to keep up with their teasing, their aggressiveness. And when I describe it that way, it sounds worse than what it probably is. It's not that this girl is blatantly like treating you like garbage or being openly disrespectful. She's like roasting you in a way, but she's attracted to you. There's a different vibe to that. If a woman is just outright disrespectful in a rude and hateful way or whatever, that is not what I'm talking about. Like, get rid of those women. And even these type A women, these women are very polarizing. A lot of guys won't want to deal with them. They won't like them. Other guys will. I find them interesting because I'm a person that likes witty conversation, witty banter. The women that kind of just like fold their hands and sit there, they're cool, but it can be kind of boring. Like, I personally like a woman who has a sense of humor to her, has some wit, has some personality, has a little bit of an exciting personality to her. She's more adventurous, she's more social, but that's just my type, right? But anyway, because of this, type A women tend to be easier to attract, which may sound weird. Aggressive and a testing flirting style, how could that be easier? Well, it's easier in a way because if you just beat her at her own game, she is heavily hooked from there because she can't find guys to do that. These types of women will usually say they get bored easily too. And what they mean, some of these women, that can be a big red flag in the sense that they get bored because they just bounce around guy to guy, right? But some of them mean it in the way that they get bored intellectually. Like the guy doesn't intellectually challenge them or stimulate them at all. I've dated numerous women like this, and they like to learn new things. They like to explore new things. They like to be taught things by you. They like to have you challenge the boundaries of like their intellect. Once you get past that aggressive teasing flirting style, a lot of the times they just get more serious and more normal and more submissive because now they respect your mind. They respect your strength. They respect your demeanor. They respect the way you carry yourself. The other upside to these women is that they're usually not materialistic. They're usually not impressed by money, by status, by things, and all this stuff. They're usually looking for a guy to impress them intellectually, with their mind, with the way the man carries himself. So the key with a type A woman is to play her game at first, but then guide her into your own so that she can feel your strength. That's what makes her drop all of that and be completely submissive from there. And the thing is that they want to be submissive. They're just looking for a man that is strong and interesting enough to submit to. That's the whole purpose of the more aggressive flirting style. Again, this is a polarizing type of woman. Some guys won't want to deal with it. Some guys won't be able to deal with it. But if you're into this type of girl, this is essentially what you do. And they can be fun. They can be fun to date. You know, like I said, on the surface, certain guys might see this and go aggressive and testing. Like, I don't want to deal with that. No, man. Like, some of my best experiences are with type A women. They're a good time once you get through that. So expectations. You are always conditioning women to expect certain behavior from you. If you reply to her text messages in 5 minutes all the time, she will come to expect that. If you take her to fancy dinners and expensive vacations to impress her, she will come to expect that. If you see her 7 days a week, she will come to expect that. Your repeated behaviors become obligations. Beware of what expectations you are setting from the start. This is really important. You know, this is kind of self-explanatory just reading through this, so I'm not going to go on too long about this. But whatever standard you begin to set at the start is what becomes an expectation of you. It becomes obligation. So you want to be careful of that. The true test. Now, your resolve as a man is truly tested with women that are 8s, 9s, and 10s. And I put an asterisk next to a 10 because 10 on my scale is like literally perfection. 5 is average. You know, an 8 and a 9 are way above average, and a 10 is perfection. I don't think a 10 actually exists, but just for the sake of argument, let's say that, you know, you rate certain women a 10. Let's just say that your resolve as a man is truly tested with women that you view as very beautiful. Because the more beautiful a woman, the more nonsense a man will let her get away with. The more a man is likely to betray himself. The more delusion a man is likely to assign to her and let her get away with certain things, or view her in a way that isn't reality. If you can hold steady in the face of high levels of beauty, you will have reached a level that most never will. It's kind of funny to think about how challenging beauty can be, because you think about it as humans, everyone ages. We're all going to lose our looks and be shriveled up and old one day and end up dust in the ground one day, right? But while we're here and a woman is youthful and in her prime and beautiful, it can be very intimidating to guys. It can make guys do stupid things. They get caught up in that beauty, and they want that beauty so much that they lose themselves in the process. They let the girl get away with a lot of nonsense. They betray their own values. They compromise themselves. So if you can get to a point where you hold steady, whether you're talking to a 5 or a 9 or a 10 or whatever it is, you'll reach a level that most men never will. Because most men see a really beautiful woman and they throw everything out the window to try to get that woman. They will completely compromise themselves. They will screw over friends. They will betray people. They will do anything they can to get to that woman. They'll say all kinds of simpy things to them. You know, everything just falls apart. So if you can avoid that, you're at a level that well over 90% of men will never be at. Now, on the topic of beauty, she's not as hot as you think. She's got 9 different makeup products on. She's got hair extensions and colored contacts in. She angles the phone perfectly and takes 50 photos to get the one you're drooling over. She's had 4 plastic surgeries and injects Botox and lip filler into her face. She's actually a B cup without the push-up bra. She also photoshopped her waist to look smaller and added curves to her hips. Appreciate a woman's beauty, but keep it in perspective. She's an imperfect human with her own set of issues, not a goddess. And I'm not trying to bash women here for their looks or the things they do to enhance their looks. You know, if I was a girl, I'd probably use all those things too. But keep things in perspective. You know, you see some of these videos like on TikTok, Instagram, wherever, where girls will show themselves without makeup, and then they do like the little transformation thing to show themselves after, the whole before and after makeup. And when I see these videos, I'm like, man, like when you see the girl without makeup, like it really puts it in perspective. You're like, she's not nearly as eye-catching as she was with the makeup. Let's put it that way. You know, appreciate a woman's beauty, but keep it in perspective. Like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on. And usually a lot of the hottest women have some unnatural things being done. Surgeries, you know, Botox and all this different stuff. And then of course, photo angles, all that stuff. You know, the list of things that women can do. Keep it in perspective. She's a human. She's imperfect. If you see her without makeup in person, when she wakes up in the morning with sweatpants and a t-shirt on, it's going to be a lot different than her best photo on Instagram. She's not a goddess. She's a human. Now, overvaluing one girl. Girls are more interchangeable than you think, so don't get hooked on one so easily. You know, keep the leads coming in. Even just putting in that effort of talking to new women makes a difference with how you act with one. You move differently when you have options. Until exclusivity is established, it's open season. You know, some guys, when they start talking to a girl in the talking stage or whatever, they just cut off every other girl. And then if that girl leaves, now they're back to 0 again. Don't make that mistake. If you're talking to a girl, casually dating, whatever, keep talking to other women. Keep it going, because it's only going to benefit you. You know, a man with options acts totally different than a man without options. And when you know you have options, you move differently entirely. And she also feels that too. You just move more confidently. You're more patient. You just have a more attractive aura to you overall. So keep that in mind. And also just don't get hung up on one girl so easily. This includes breakups and stuff too. Girls are more interchangeable than you think. It's not that hard to find another girl that you'll get along with. You know, I know you felt like she was your soulmate, unique and all that. And I've met girls like that too, where I was like, these girls are way different than any other woman, but there are more of them out there. It may take time to find them, but they are out there. They're more interchangeable than you think. Now, what do I say? Guys focus too much on what to say rather than what they want the girl to hear. Focus on where you're trying to take her. What is said and what is communicated are two different things. I'm not going to elaborate on this one too much. I just want that one to sit with you and think about that. What is said and what is communicated are two different things. Know the difference and learn the difference. This is huge. This is a massive, massive key to all of this. Now, reciprocal mistakes. Men sometimes make the mistake of conflating a woman's attractive qualities with what they should display. Men are attracted to a degree of innocence and vulnerability. Sometimes this is conflated with thinking that she will appreciate the same qualities, but this is a misunderstanding of polarity. She desires her opposite for balance, yin and yang. You may find her insecurities endearing, but she will find yours repelling. Always keep this in mind. The things that you find attractive about her aren't necessarily what she's going to find attractive about you, and guys will make this mistake even while not realizing it. What typically brings a man and a woman together is opposite polarities. She wants her feminine balanced with the masculine, so don't emulate the feminine because now it's feminine energy clashing into each other. You need those opposite polarities. Emotional control. Men control interactions by being non-reactive. Women control interactions by increasing the intensity of emotions. Your weapon against the emotional storm is being calm in the eye of the storm. This signals strength and leadership ability. This is one of those core skills that everything relies on. If you don't have emotional skill, you can't have good game. If you don't have emotional control, you can't have a good long-term relationship. If you don't have emotional control, you can't be a player or have a rotation or whatever you want to do. Everything comes back to emotional control. Women control interactions by increasing the intensity of emotions, which means you need to do the opposite. You need to be the calm in the eye of the storm in scenarios like that. You need to be in control of your emotions and be mostly non-reactive. It doesn't mean be a robot. It doesn't mean you can never express yourself. It's just that on average, you should be in control. Now, a woman's availability. The primary metric to pay attention to when gauging a woman's interest is how available she makes herself. Women will crawl through glass and lava to be with the man that they truly desire. They will fight to make things work. If she's making excuses on meeting up or making the process difficult, she isn't into you. If she's giving reasons why it won't work out, she isn't into you. Women make themselves available for the men they want. Period. I emphasize the period there because it's entirely true. I've personally had 2 women move across the country to come date me. I've had women take planes and trains, literally, to come see me. I don't say that to brag or humble brag or whatever. I say that to use it as a point of reference to tell you that if a girl is making a bunch of excuses on why she can't come to see you, or she's making it difficult to drive 10 minutes to see you or whatever, she's not that into you. When women are into you, they let it be known. They will crawl through glass and lava to be with you. They will up and move. They will spend money. Like when the desire is high enough, you will know about it. There's no questioning it. So if you're sitting there going, well, does this girl like me? Like, I don't know, she kind of flaked on this date. Now she wants to reschedule. You know, we went out once and she's kind of lukewarm. The answer is no. The answer is no. You will know when a woman likes you. She will make herself available and there will be no questioning it. She will make it obvious. And the best way to know this is to deal with high interest women and low interest women and know the difference between the two. You need to understand the contrast to be able to identify it. Now, attention is currency. If a woman stops desiring your attention, it's because she's receiving it elsewhere. They rarely go into a state of complete isolation from attention. Women seek the attention of the men that they want. Observe her actions from afar. If she's fading, understand her perception of your overall value to her. Never try to negotiate this. Speak with your actions and remove yourself. Again, this goes hand in hand with her being available. If a woman once was trying to hang out with you all the time and really enjoyed talking to you, and now she's fading, she seems to not be talking to you as much, she makes excuses for hanging out, her schedule's changing up kind of mysteriously, she's getting attention from elsewhere. She's getting more distant because she's receiving that attention from somewhere else. She didn't just decide to not talk to guys anymore and now she's just in hiding. That doesn't happen 99% of the time. I'll say 99% just to give the chance of an outlier for that 1%, but you can bet damn near every time she's getting attention from somewhere else. This is also, again, one of those things you can do to tell if a girl's like cheating or not. You'll start to notice that her attention's fading. She's being more inconsistent. She doesn't really talk to you as much. She doesn't really care to. She doesn't really care to be available as much. She's making excuses. She's gone more often. She's mysteriously changing up her schedule, things like that. But the point here is that if a woman stops desiring your attention, it's because she's receiving it elsewhere. And you cannot negotiate this. Just speak with your actions and remove yourself. The caveat here would be if you're like making her life miserable in some regard, and that's why she's, distancing herself. But assuming that things were going good and now they're not all of a sudden, and you didn't do anything to make that happen, pay attention to this. All right, next one, her perspective. It is very difficult, if not impossible, to overcome a woman's perception of your value in the negative. This has nothing to do with your virtue, but your perceived value. This mainly applies to viewing you as weak, lame, creepy, lazy, needy, and or goofy. The only potential way to override this is to go away for a long period of time and come back a completely different version of yourself. This is one of the reasons why it's best to not chase an ex that dumped you. And on that note, by the time you become that different version of yourself, you won't even want that girl anymore. 9 times out of 10, you won't even desire her anymore because you become a different person at that point. Now, going back a little bit, the reason why I said this is the only potential way to override this is with some women, you won't be able to override it, period. They've made the conclusion that you're unattractive in one way or another, your value's low to them, and that's just the way it is. But that doesn't matter anyway. You're not trying to convince anyone to be attracted to you. But it is worth noting that it is very difficult to overcome a woman's perception of your value in the negative. So if an ex dumps you because of that, 9 times out of 10, it's best to just move on to someone else because of this, rather than trying to convince her of your newfound value or whatever. And a lot of the time, like I said, you won't even want that girl anyway by the time you do improve yourself. Trust your gut. The small, still voice you want to ignore is usually right. If you feel like something is off, you're probably right. If you feel like she's hiding something, you're probably right. If you feel like the relationship is doomed, you're probably right. Your gut is more objective and detail focused than you are, so listen to it. The exception here would be true paranoia, which is rare for any rational person. But if you're the type of person that thinks everyone's out to get you and everyone's up to something, this doesn't apply to you. Your gut feeling is corrupted by that state of paranoia. But for any normal, rational person, trust your gut. It picks up on things that you don't consciously. If you start to feel like things are off with this woman, or something's changing, or something's weird, and things are starting to add up, and these little alarms are going off inside of you, pay attention to that. And on that note, she didn't change overnight. Women always reveal their red flags. Most men just aren't paying attention. Or the woman's beauty hypnotizes the man into rationalizing her flags. By the time she cheats on you or dumps you, she already gave you clues long ago. When it seems like she changed overnight, you just weren't paying attention. You assigned an image to her that wasn't rooted in reality. So pretty self-explanatory here. Women always reveal their red flags. Most men just aren't paying attention, or they're rationalized because of her beauty. Girls will show you flags early on, but if she's hot enough, a lot of guys will just rationalize it. They'll be like, oh, well, maybe that's just in her past. She's moved on from that, or, oh, that's kind of weird, but I don't know, she just doesn't seem like that type of girl. Maybe she just, told that story wrong or something like that. There's different ways of rationalizing it. By the time she cheats on you or dumps you, she already gave you clues long ago. Women just don't go from hot to cold in like 2 seconds and they're gone. They're not, madly in love with you Friday night and then Sunday morning, they're just cold and gone. They detach mentally and internally first before they go. So the signs will be there if you're paying attention. If it feels like she just changed overnight and she was gone, you weren't paying attention. Like, she gave you signs before she left. She gave you signs of the incoming storm. There was a weather forecast for the storm that was coming in off the shore. You just weren't paying attention to it. And a lot of the time, guys will just assign an image to the girl that wasn't rooted in reality. That girl showed flags, and the guy still chose to believe that she was one type of way, even though she actually isn't that girl. And then he's just blown away when she ends up being that girl. It's like, she was showing you, dude, but you assigned an image to her. This goes way back to my second point. I think it was way back at the start, where I said you got to get rid of your delusions. You got to see reality for what it is. You got to see these women for who they are and who you're dealing with. She may be a great woman, she may not, but either way, you got to pay attention to what she's showing you and pay attention to what reality is and who she actually is, not who you want her to be. Breakups. If she dumped you, let her go. If you have to convince her to be with you, you already lost. Women go where their heart desires. As I was saying before, women make themselves available to the men they want. You won't have to convince them. You can't negotiate desire, nor should you try. You're better off helping her pack her bags faster. Breakups are an interesting one. I've gone through them myself in the past, and I've helped other people go through breakups. I'm actually talking to 3 guys right now going through breakups of long relationships that lasted years and years, and actually 1 girl too, another long-term relationship. So 3 guys and 1 girl I'm talking to and helping through their breakups right now. So if you want a video on breakups, let me know. If you made it this far, let me know down in the comments. But if a girl dumps you because she lost attraction to you in some regard, just let her go. You know, there's all different scenarios. There's different scenarios for different types of breakups and all this stuff. But assuming that she just lost attraction and she left, you want to let that what type of woman go. If you have to convince her to be with you, or if you have to try to convince her, you're already lost. Like, you're fighting a losing battle. You're not paying attention to the bigger signal. Women go where their heart desires. You won't have to convince them to stay. When she has desire for you, she will stay all on her own. She will try to make things work. You can't negotiate desire, nor should you try. You're better off just encouraging the whole thing at that point and just being like, yep, I agree, we should break up. Let's move on. Because if a woman doesn't have the desire for you, why do you want her around anyway? Why are you trying to convince this woman to desire you? There are women out there that will genuinely desire you. What are you doing? That's all I'm going to say about this one. Rejection. You need to take a lot of rejections to improve. And I mean a lot of rejections. Learning game strategy and improving yourself isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about improving the odds of the outcome. A skilled poker player still loses. He just wins more often than the average player. The most attractive guys still get rejected, and sometimes by women beneath them. And by beneath them, I just mean less attractive than they are. I know other creators in this space, and there's certain guys that are viewed as being very attractive in this space, and they've been rejected by girls that are like a 6. And they're like, what is going on? You know, like, no one's immune to this stuff. No matter how awesome you are or how much status you have, there's a girl out there that will reject you because you're not every woman's type, and not every woman will perceive you as attractive. Like gambling, you can't guarantee wins, but you can be profitable. And that's what this is all about. Learning game strategy and self-improvement and all this stuff is about improving the odds of the outcome. It's not about controlling it. There's a whole nother person on the other side. You can't control everything, but you can greatly influence the outcomes. You can get much better outcomes far more often than you lose if you do the work. That's the big thing here. You'll never be 100%, but you'll be way better off than the average guy or your former self. So it is absolutely worth doing. It is absolutely worth learning game strategy, self-improvement, all this stuff. 100%, 110% it's worth learning. But just understand that there's no way to be 100% across the board, just like with gambling. The work is absolutely worth doing, and you should do it, and you should grow, and you should look for every single way to improve that you possibly can, to improve your odds of a beneficial outcome, but nothing is 100%. And you will need to take a lot of rejections along the way to really improve. If you're not getting rejected, you're not actually putting yourself out there. It's actually a bad signal. If you're not getting rejections, like you're not doing the right things. Now, the grass is never truly greener. When you're single, you may want a relationship. When you're in a relationship, you may miss the freedom of being single. When you buy a car, you may miss the utility of having a truck. When you buy a truck, you may miss the gas mileage of the car. Seeking happiness through circumstance is chasing a carrot on a stick that will never be caught. The human brain always wants more. You have to actively tame it. Identify the lifestyle that gets closest to your true internal values and then make the most of it. Life is largely what you make of it. You know, this one kind of speaks for itself, and I'm sure you can relate to it. When you achieve one thing, you want another. And you know, what is new at first eventually becomes old. When you first buy a car, you're super happy. You got this brand new car. It's got that new car smell. It's, you know, it's fun. You're excited to have it, but eventually it becomes old news. Like, the human brain is our greatest strength, yet the thing that also hinders us. You know, it's very fickle. It's annoying to deal with. You know, it's hard to find true happiness with anything unless you choose to be happy, unless you choose to be content, because the brain is greedy. It always wants more and more and more and different. And I want this and I want that, and I feel this and I feel that, you know, like that is essentially what the brain is doing all the time. So seeking happiness through circumstances, chasing a carrot on a stick that will never be caught. If you think to yourself, well, if I get my circumstances to this one point, then I'll be happy. That's not true. You'll be temporarily happy, but there's going to be something else that your mind comes up with to complain about, or something more that you want. So you have to actively tame your mind and become content. And this doesn't mean settling for less or accepting mediocrity or anything like that. It means understanding how the human mind works and how that intertwines with your philosophy and your views on life, your spirituality, your internal happiness and contentment, how all these things intertwine. This applies to life, and this applies to dating too. So again, identify the lifestyle that gets closest to your true internal values and then make the most of it. It's up to you to choose happiness. It's up to you to choose contentment. And now obviously there's certain things that in life, you will need to change the circumstance. If you're with a toxic person that just does nothing but dump negativity on you all the time, that's obviously the situation that you should change, rather than just being like, well, I'm going to be content with this. I'm going to be happy with this. Like, there's clearly a problem there. If you're way overweight, if you're not getting the results that you want, if you want to be able to communicate better or whatever, like, work on these things. Like, use common sense here. If there's something that's hindering you, fix it. If there's something that's holding you back, improve it. But understand how the human mind works and how you will actively have to tame it and its desires. It's greedy, it wants more and more, and you have to work against that. It's just in our nature, male or female. And it's a blessing and a curse as a human. It's the thing that separates us from animals and makes us, intellectually more insightful and able to make different decisions and feel different things and have different experiences, but it can also work against us. So you have to work to actively tame that. Now, with all that said, if you need help or if you want to work with me, make sure to check out the links down in the description below, and make sure to watch this video next, and I will see you in the next one.